Hey, Depeche, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Sure, no problem. My background is a techie guy. Graduated from Carnegie Mellon with a technical degree. We basically did a lot of product management and professional services in the startup world prior to my MBA, and realized that marketing was kind of where I wanted to be because marketing kind of leveraged product management quite a bit in terms of getting feature and comparison. So after I did my MBA at Babson, I used that to leverage my career into marketing and specifically product marketing and sales enablement. So I did stints at a number of companies since then, all in the tech field, mostly in the mobile application development area, and then a quick stint in robotics as well as in ed tech. And now I run product marketing and enablement at a company called Logs.io in the Boston area, which is basically an open source cloud native integrated observability platform for developers to troubleshoot applications.
Cool. Did you get burnt out on development, or was it too antisocial for you? Or
It was, to be frankly, I'm sure you can tell I'm a fairly gregarious and social person.
yeah,
That's certainly part of it. But to be honest, I found product management. I mean, for some people it works. For me, it was very repetitive. It was always, a release and then on to the next release. And it was rare moments to enjoy kind of that feature set of what you had. It's already on to how do we make it better and better. And it's just a constant cycle. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that that's the way it is at every organization, but for me, it felt that that was pretty repetitive and I did it at a couple companies. So I just wanted to do more messaging and positioning and work with sales a lot more and help them sell the product because I just thought my skill set was more valuable in that area than it was being in the product management side.
yeah. And how long did it take to figure that out? Was it
Oh,
quick?
I figured it out. So I did my MBA as a way to get out of it. So I was like, I've done this now. So I did it pretty much from 2002 to 2007. In that 5-year period of time, I very quickly realized that it's just not for me, and I wasn't enjoying it as much. I just felt that I was getting pigeonholed into that area, and I was fearful that if I continued to do so, that future prospects or my ability to change my career would become difficult. And I talked to a lot of people about MBAs, and I also wanted to get into strategy and corporate strategy and move my way up the corporate ladder. And I knew an MBA was a way to make all of that happen. So that was kind of how I chose to do it.
Yeah. And product management's a good segue,
Oh, 100%.
right? Because you understand the product,
Yes.
and
Yes, I mean, to be frank with you, I mean, my technical background, I mean, like I said, I graduated CMU with an information systems degree. So, I was at Deloitte right after graduation, and I worked, did product management. I worked with developers. I was building data crosswalks, doing basically product requirements documents or PRDs, those types of things. So I was getting right into it. And so it does help you because when you're building a product or building a feature set, you have to understand the customer and how the customer tries to engage with the product. You have to understand each feature and how it's valuable to the customer. So being able to take that technical knowledge of how a product and a feature works, and then that's a very good footprint or foundation to say, okay, I know how the feature works. But just because I know how it works or how it's meant to be built doesn't mean a customer at the end will understand it or understand its value or even be able to consume it in the right way. Because what's technical for me doesn't mean, or what's easily understood and understandable for me doesn't necessarily mean it's understandable for you as a consumer of the product. So how can I make that happen so that you understand the value just as much as I do? So it's a great stepping stone to be able to do that, to learn from.
and what was it like when you first had to deal with salespeople? Those rascals.
Oh, it was not very good. So I mean, it's just to be frank with you, it took. I mean, I started my product marketing career basically in 2000 and what are we talking? 2012. So for me that was my first stint with working in product marketing and working with sales and enabling a 70-person sales team at a company called Coney, which has since been, which is in the mobile end-to-end mobile application space, since been acquired by a company called Temenos. But for me, it wasn't very good because I knew I was basically, as I just mentioned to you, I was writing the features and what the feature does, and I wasn't storytelling. and the salesperson, so that's great. You have a bunch of bullets to just tell me all the features, and it's a lot of technical jargon, and it's great. We do all these things, even if the salesperson was selling to a developer. But the truth of the matter was, there's so much competition in the market. Everyone lists their features. So your features, it can be little nuance of things that differentiate you. And in all honesty, when you're selling to whether a technical crowd or otherwise, those nuances are hard to pick up on. An end user doesn't get that. They need to be told a story with it, or in a lot of cases, they need to understand in context.
Yes.
So this helps you because it helps you make you better efficient or more productive, or remember when you had this problem and how it's took up so much time, or etc., as opposed to saying this feature does this and is a better phalange or a better wing, and it just, I mean, that's irrelevant. They need to hear it in context and be understand it in a problem that they're currently having. And that's what I learned. My first year was all about, this is how the feature works. This is, a salesperson should know that. Here's your feature, take it. Here's your competitive analysis. Go ahead and take it. And they were like, this is great and good. It's just a lot of content, but it's not helpful content, or it's not helpful messaging. And so it wasn't very good in the beginning, but they knew that. And I learned my way and slowly but surely got progressively better at it. So.
And what was the epiphany there?
What was the epiphany? Yeah, I think, look, to be frank with you, it was very clear to me that the way I was trying to do it, I mean, the results matter. If we're not selling more, or people are coming back from deals and we've lost that deal to a competitor, or we lost that deal just simply from, just being weeded out, it's clearly, you can either blame sales, or you can blame broad marketing. The truth of the matter is, it's always
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's somewhere in the middle. I mean, someone's always going to point the finger, but to me, it was irrelevant to me because it doesn't matter who the blame was. If we weren't getting the deal, and if we weren't closing, if we weren't being able to get them to conversion, then clearly, I must have something to do with that, and I should take the onus on it. So I started to figure it out, and to terms of what was working. So when I made the adjustment, or learned from my sales who were giving the feedback, or were going on customer calls and listening to the feedback that they were giving based on the information our salesperson was saying that they got from me, let's per se, I could see that they weren't understanding what was written down, or they weren't understanding the messaging that I was providing to the salesperson, etc. So to me, that was clear feedback of, hey, I was like, how could they not get it? But then I was just realizing, you know what, you have to give them breadcrumbs, as one of my former mentors would say, is, Depesh, you know the end goal. You know how to get from A to B, and you can jump all the wheels because you have it in your head. But you have to realize that people need to be brought along the journey, and you have to give them the breadcrumbs to get there. And that's what I kind of took to them. I said, okay, that makes sense. And so I was like, how do I give them the breadcrumbs and take them on the journey that I can see, and get them in a way, get them there in a way that they can understand it. So it's not about, feature X does X, Y, and Z. It's feature X helps you, better get to your end goal of trying to, do something faster, or do something more cost effective, or do something more efficient or productive, etc. That, remember this problem you had that, hurt you so much? This is how you get there a little bit better, if that makes sense.
It does, because I've sold technology my whole life, mostly for startups.
Yeah.
Where you don't have the brand recognition,
right,
and the awareness of the problem.
Right.
And it sounds like that's the market you were in.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, Coney, for instance, didn't have no one knew it as a brand recognition, but it was, doing quite a bit in revenue, and it was owned by, it was being used by so many of these large organizations that were white labeling it. So they would stamp their own, and they were using it as a platform to build these applications, and they were white labeling it. So, but it has no brand. People didn't know that it was a Coney application underneath it all. So you had to go into these markets and these customers and go, who the heck are you? Oh, you guys have that much in revenue? You guys have those customers? I have never heard of you. So, but that doesn't matter. Tell me how your product makes my life better. Tell me how you can help me, be faster or more efficient or more cost effective. And you have to prove it out in that sense. And it's not just, hey, we have the same thing that our competitor to our left and our competitor to our right has. We have to show it in a way that says, here's how we do it. Here's how it will make your life better. Here's your use case studies and use cases. That's another thing. I think those are probably my most strongest arrows in the quiver of videos of others who've been successful, and just use cases of showing that, and how those are honestly the most powerful quivers in a salesperson's bag of tricks, as well as any product marketer or sales enablement person, for sure.
Yeah. And what do you like about enablement?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, what I love about enablement in the best is when I know I can get through to, it's honestly a personal thing. When I know I can get through to salespeople who honestly don't have any background in the company or the product we're selling. Literally, currently at Logs.io, we've hired sales teams, the youngest of the young, who come from education backgrounds and academic backgrounds. They have nothing technically. They don't know a thing about Java or anything else, or observability or any aspect of it. But to be able to get them, to enable them and get them through the onboarding and train them, and then get them to understand how to tell our story, and then see them go out there, literally no background in DevOps, let's say, nothing. I mean, one kid has a music background, his SDR, a music background, and he's, this is his first job out of college. He plays in a band, needed a job. He's very good at talking and very good at storytelling. So how do I get this kid to be very good at selling a technical solution? And my ability, my small team's ability to onboard them, train them, understand how to sell it, message it, and then listen to them on, some companies use Gong. We use Gong to listen to calls and things like that, and see them flourish in these calls, and have the most SQLs signed up and the most meetings signed up, and hear customers talk to them on the phone and go, "Oh, I understand your story. I understand it. Yeah, set up a meeting. Let's have a demo. Let's do this." I mean, I enjoy that thoroughly. I mean, that means I've done my job, because I've taken someone from literally zero and been able to make them efficient and effective, and be able to do this job in the right way, and give them all the tools that they need, and the weapons in their belt to be able to sell, and tell our story in the right way. That is satisfying. That's just simply the most satisfying thing. Seeing conversion, seeing it happen. The maturity of it is when you get to a repeatable model. And when you can realize that you can enable, a young SDR, ADR, BDR, all the way to an account executive, et cetera, and be able to make them all be effective, from enterprise size, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year deals to, 2-month, subscription-based services. If you can do that all for everyone, which means you can satisfy every need, tough enterprise 3-year deals where you're really going in, you have very tough meetings, 7, 8, 10, 12 meetings with the big high level people down to the low levels. And you've enabled your team enough to give them all the weapons they need in any of those situations. And then you get the deal. And that's satisfying for me. It's not always easy. It's very, very hard to do it. More often than not, you're not as successful, and there's always something to learn. But the times and quarters where it works really well, you're very satisfied to see people come along that way and sell the product right.
That's it, because most people who do enablement and product marketing talk about what it is, what it does, how it works.
Yeah.
But no one cares, because somebody's already solving the problem somehow, some way today.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So,
good.
Unless you can pull out a symptom of the problem or a consequence of the problem, implication of it, all the keywords, they have confirmation bias.
Correct.
We're covered. We got this. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's absolutely right. It's unless you can figure out exactly what is the absolute, as you mentioned, the symptom of the problem is the key. Is what is causing it? What is the root cause of why they're speaking to you, or vice versa, which is the harder part of when you're approaching them, or as our sales team does a lot of prospecting, they're not approaching you. They haven't come to you, and you have to make them realize that there is a problem or a symptom of a problem, as you just mentioned, and that, they may feel it. If they're not feeling it today, they may, putting in the seed in their head, they're going to feel it tomorrow or 20 days from now. And they're not thinking about things that as they scale and grow, that they're going to have to deal with. So how, both of those scenarios is, how do you make them realize that when they come to you? And how do you enable your sales team to be able to tell that story when they do come to you, to say, hey, extrapolate it. Here are some of the ways of not just solving the problem, but here's what this means. Here's what this might mean for you tomorrow in terms of your whatever the problem ultimately made, revenue dollars, getting projects done faster, so on and so forth. Or vice versa, when you go to them and say, hey, by the way, this is something we do, and you have you're probably doing it. And they say to you, well, we have that solved. We already have that. We already have it. We have a tool.
They're already in business.
They're already in business.
They weren't sitting around waiting for you guys to call.
Right. I wasn't waiting for you. We're good. We can just hang up the phone, and being able to help that salesperson to go, no. There's a lot of things that ask them questions. And I don't know if we're going to get into this, but there's methodologies, right, in sales of Sandler method and otherwise, where, Sandler methodology leverages things like finding pain and asking questions and holding a conversation. We subscribe to that. It's part of my sales methodology at Logs, is to give them the ability to extrapolate and find pain where it seems like there might not be any pain, right? So, and make them realize there's going to be pain, et cetera, in order to create a conversation like we're having now, and then really engage. And then that's when once we have them there, once we've hooked them there, that's when we can really use some of the tools and weapons that we've created in Enablement to really dig deeper and make them realize things and realize, yeah, you guys are right. That definitely is a problem I might have in the future, or that is a problem I haven't realized and I should look at it more. That might be an issue. Let me take a look, or show me how it's done. And then we're in a great spot. But that's the key of it, finding the symptom, finding the ability to show them that there's things they're not thinking about or things they need to be aware of.
That's it, because for most early stage technology companies, your total addressable market is in latent pain, not active pain.
Correct. Exactly right. It is an active pain because, again, it's looking at a very narrow view. Is as you just mentioned, latent pain is things you're not aware of, and things you might see or protect. And honestly, that's the crux of the business. That's the beauty of sales, and that's the beauty of sales enablement, is to make them see what's not in their periphery, right? What's not in their nearsighted vision, is to make them see that, as you mentioned. I agree with that completely.
Right, and they market what it is, what it does, how it works, and how it's better.
Correct. Exactly right.
If people aren't in active pain, they're like, yeah, it's better here and worse there. And I've got this solved, and it takes longer.
Yeah. That's the idea, right? You see these startups that are doing so well. Honestly, I would be frank with you. The way we basically do it is we attack it honestly from a scaling standpoint. Everyone is, when you're a small SMB, and honestly, our market is mostly at Logs, is very much the SMB to mid-sized market. But all of these SMBs and mid-sized companies are very much have aspirations to become enterprises. Today they build one application and they're looking at, oh, my application doesn't work, so can you help me with it? Can you help me? How do I troubleshoot this application that one little app that I built, whether it's a desktop app, mobile app, whatever, fix it. But our point is to make them, the way we need to make them understand is your goal is not to have one app for 5 customers. Your goal is to ultimately, you're going to build 20, 30, 40, 50 apps. You're going to have servers. You're going to have offices. You're going to hopefully scale. Your goals and your dreams are to become, the Home Depots and the Amazons and the Googles. That's most of these companies' dreams, is to become scale. And our goal to make them see is, that's going to have its own set of issues and problems and areas of scale that you have to manage and fix. And it's our job to make them see that from a sales perspective, as you're just thinking today and you have to solve this one singular point in time. But tomorrow you're going to have a whole set of other things if you're even doing well. That's if you're doing well, you're going to have that. So you need to think about that and be aware of that, and then see that technology can help you in handling that scale and managing it, et cetera, and those types of things.
And do you find the reps have a hard time with this mentality or this mindset?
Yeah, it kind of depends on where they are in their career. I find that those in sales, specifically at the not the BDR level, anything at the BDR level is usually younger, et cetera. But those who are in, kind of the account executive, account manager, customer success manager, they are more seasoned, and they are able to see kind of the forest from the trees, et cetera. And so it's a little bit easier for them to understand that, hey, we're going to talk about more of the future and more of what to make companies think about things that they might not be thinking about at present. Their present problem is not going to be their future problem, and they need to make them realize that the AEs and those who are more in their mid-career seem to get that rather quickly, and it's easier to help them see that story and what we're trying to build enablement to empower them to do so. It's the younger crowd who haven't seen that, who haven't experienced, who haven't been in an organization, maybe his first company, those who are, typically inside sales, younger. I'm not trying to stereotype anything, but the younger generation who's just starting out in their careers, they have to experience that to understand what it means to say, hey, make them understand problems at scale, or make them understand the future problem, how to keep someone on the phone or in a meeting and engaged, and make them aware of those things. So honestly, that's why if in terms of sales enablement, onboarding is so important, because onboarding of especially that younger generation, or those in inside sales or BDRs or ADRs, is to make them really get that message and train them on, here's the problem we're solving, here's how it means tomorrow, giving them use cases, giving them case studies, like I mentioned, because it's just as valuable for to the sales team to see those use cases and case studies. Again, it crystallizes the problem comparatively to when you're doing it obviously with the customer. But the answer to your question is, as always, is it depends. It just depends on where they are in their journey.
And where do you report into in the company? Is it marketing? Is it engineering? Is it
Great
sales?
question. So at this organization, I report into the chief revenue officer. So sales okay. is responsible here, but that's the way this organization features and functions, and that's fine. In other organizations, for instance, at a Coney, for instance, which was a much bigger company before it got acquired, etc. That's where we had a solid CMO, and every marketing and product marketing and enablement was part of the marketing engine. Sales enablement was just a piece of that. It just depends on the organization you're in. In all honesty, again, the size of the organization, sometimes you have sales enablement as its own function. Right. And typically in startups and mid-sized companies, most of the times I see sales enablement as part of product marketing, because they fit so much hand in hand. I mean, messaging, positioning comes from product marketing. So hence training should probably also come from product marketing, especially when you're in a small organization. But when you're dealing with the Ciscos and the Googles and the Amazons and all of those in the world, where you have hundreds of thousands of salespeople and obviously the resources to build your own sales enablement model and be able to be very reactive and proactive, you have its own department, and that's fine. It's just I've worked in both. It just depends on how you wish to do it. But enablement in general, obviously, in my opinion, should belong to the sales team. That's just my opinion, because the sales knows where they're lacking, obviously, in messaging and how to better equip them to be proactive and proficient, obviously, in selling the product. But
and it also depends on the scope, right? Correct. Because are you responsible for the hiring?
Correct. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Repeat.
In some cases, enablement's responsible for kind of like from the day they get the offer to the day they're on plan.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I mean, enablement is typically responsible from the day you set your foot in to the day you leave. And to be honest, like I said, I think enablement, there's very distinct aspects of enablement which we may get into, etc. But the onboarding piece to me is integral, is to make them understand, to make them quickly understand what is the value of what we're selling, what is the differentiator, what does the market look like, how do you attack it, kind of what do we value and what's our value proposition in the market, to make them completely crystallize that. That's one aspect of enablement, and that happens on day one. But then there's also process, and then there's also training, and those are separate different areas. Training is very critical, especially when you're selling a technical product, right? Sometimes if you're like currently at Logs, we sell to a developer audience. I mean, that is our personas. So it's a very technical audience. So training and using things like Lessonly and MindTickle and those kinds of things, where they really have to, even a salesperson must know the technical intricacies of the product, be able to demo it. Training is extremely important on the product. Whereas in other organizations where it's not as necessarily such a technical sell, but selling something like email marketing automation, etc. You don't need to really sell the features and functionality. Everyone knows what that is. It's more about what's the message. How do we do this better? How do we do this in a way that's going to help you get your campaign out, for instance, if you're selling like an email marketing tool, how does it help you reach a larger audience? It's not about, hey, press this button and that button, and that's why everything lights up and goes faster, like it is at logs, right? It's far different sell, but training very much matters. And then process, right? So process to me is, how do we know what pieces of content and what pieces of material and things that we're doing in the enablement process work in getting someone from discovery to conversion? And that process of finding, used to call it in marketing, you call it campaign in a box. In sales enablement, it's very similar. What aspects of enablement, whether that's competitive analysis, whether that's value proposition, whether that's a data sheet, whether that's a white paper, that are weapons and quivers for a salesperson, what works the best and find that optimal kind of sales enablement tools in a box that gets someone from discovery to conversion. And that's the goal there in that process. Those three things to me are critical for sales enablement too. And that's through the life cycle of a salesperson, from when they join the company to when they're, hopefully an account executive and closing large deals.
Cool. Hey, I appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it as well. I enjoyed the conversation thoroughly. I'm sure we could take this a lot further if you ever wanted, but no, I appreciated it. It was good.
And can people follow you on LinkedIn?
Yeah. People can follow me on LinkedIn. So Dipesh Mukherjee on LinkedIn. And then I have a Twitter handle, which is also at Dipesh Mukherjee as well. And yeah, those are the two major forums I use. So I'm also on Instagram if you need to use that too, but that's a very different method.
Demographic, yeah.
Yeah, very different demographic. Sure. Pictures of food and trips that I take pretty much.